Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the most charismatic, entertaining podcast available. That's right. Me and Arma had a great conversation. And just for the length of time, I didn't want to spread it out into one episode. It's almost an hour and a half conversation, amazing conversation. So I'm going to split this into two parts. This is part two, just because, we talked about a lot of stuff that she's been involved with in certain parts of the industry. So I wanted to separate it. So to give you listeners a break to go get a cheeseburger, get a beer, grab a soda, play some video games, whatever you do. No judgment here. But, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. This is me and Arma Benoit, part two. Check it out. Enjoy. And I'll see you at the top. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want you to disclose because TMZ is probably, hacking the feed as we speak. But I will say, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you before I move on to your comedy is there is a big criticism, and whether it's good and bad, about diversity and inclusion and entertainment. And so there's one side of people saying, hey, you know what? It's about time. These, regardless of sex, gender, race, these opportunities should be on the equal playing field. We need to allow more voices and diversity in Hollywood. But there's also a lot of people, whether they're older or not, who feel like, hey, we don't need to include a black person in a movie just for the status quo, or put someone who's on the LGBT spectrum just to fit a narrative. And I've seen that kind of criticism, especially. I know you worked on Black Lightning, and it's kind of in the same atmosphere. DC Legends of Tomorrow, where a lot of people complained about the lead character, Sarah Lance, becoming lesbian, and you have another famous character, being bisexual, and people complained about that. So for you, do you think it's just a matter of the fact that once we get, I always say, when we get younger blood and more people who are more in tune with what's in demand right now, that kind of shift would change? Because I feel like the people who have that type of power, who are stuck in their ways, let's put it that way, until they leave or retire, is always going to be that continuous, I make the final decision, I don't want this, and it's always going to be that tug of war.
The trick is, and here's the tricky thing, and again, it's like, if we can spread the word, and I'm not even being facetious, being like, hey, Niecy, call me, but literally they will stand in my way to be like, no, you can't talk to her, and that's the nefarious part of it, is I feel like and a lot of times it's a purposeful shutting out of kind of situation,
Yeah.
And so that is it. But here's the trick, and this is how they get you. And here, I'm not even trying to be topical, but Puff Daddy, I promise you, I worked with a lot of people that are probably going to go to jail. And yeah, a lot. And
I believe it.
And here's how that happened, because obviously you have to understand what a large criminal enterprise. Now, I never went to any of the parties or was privy to any of that part of it, but I was privy to the treating of like shit of people just
Right.
openly. And the thing that allows that is your network. And here's how they get you. And look, you see it in Congress. You see these senators say it all the time. Like, they go in there all hopeful. Like, I'm not going to be bought out by lobbyists. I'm going to change the world. They get in there, they feel defeated. They get that if you can't beat them, join them mindset. Right. And then they join them. And next thing you know, they're flying on private jets too. And so that's what happens. So here you are, let's say you're an actor, you've struggled this whole time, right? Now they're going to give you this job, right? But maybe there's some racist undertones to some of the lines that people say towards you on the show. Now, are you going to say, yo, that's fucking racist, you can't say that? Or are you going to smile and take that huge fucking check? And the fact that your face is going to be on a billboard for a CBS show. Right. What do you do? Because that's your bag. It's not fair. Your choice is be a good guy or take the fucking check. That's not fair that they do that, because if you speak up, then you're a pain in the ass.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so it's getting better. Gen Z does not give a crap. And God, I love them so much for that, because they really are like, no, you can't say that. Screw you. I'll find a check somewhere else. And the problem is now that check is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So now people are like, oh, let me talk to you. And also now people like you and I are talking. And I'm like, Nisi, I have a fully formed show. I got a whole 2 seasons for you about African-American lesbians. Let's talk. And if she hears it, it could happen. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing where I don't need somebody to hold my hand necessarily. I just need to figure out the actual right network. You know what I mean? And the problem is, and that's what Atlanta is too. I always say, because you can't shut out that many people and tell that many people that they can't do something. They will all go away and form in Atlanta. Atlanta is the place. That's why women, that's why gays, that's why trans, that's why Black people, that's why Hispanics, that's why Asians, that's why anybody can come here and have a shot. Because if you went to LA and said, I'm an actor, the first question they're going to say is, what have you been in? And if you haven't been anything big, they'll be like, you're not really an actor. If you come to Atlanta and you tell somebody I'm an actor, they'll say, what have you been in? And if you said, I haven't ever been in anything, they'd say, oh, you know what? I got a friend, he takes classes. Let me hook you up with him. He knows some great classes. He might be able to help you. Oh, you know what? I work in the film and television industry. I have a friend who's she just got signed with an agent. She'll be able to tell you what steps she took. We want everyone to succeed. Look at me, look at you. How does your success impede my success? It doesn't. Like, you can't take my spot, for fuck's sake. You can't tell my stories. I can't tell your stories. Why wouldn't we want to help each other? And Atlanta has a lot more of that. As you see the implants coming from other places, you feel them trying to bring that energy. And we're like, no, we're not having it. But again, that's why it's all marginalized people that are seeing success here, and why white guys probably are a little, salty about it, because they can go be successful in Iowa, but we can't. Nobody's talking to me in Iowa. You know what I mean? But in Atlanta, they do. Nobody looks at me. Well, now in Atlanta, I'm like, I did outcast, screw you. But now... But that's still not helping me with the TV show. That's still a whole bunch of white people. And that's the truth. And again, it's the same with everything. It's not about being $1 million quarterback. It's about being $1 billion team owner. That's where it's still all white people. You look at the heads of all the networks, it's still white people. The people that own all of it is still white men. It's all old white men. And so, yes, I mean, the good news is they die eventually. But the bad news is their ideas don't, if we don't let them. So when you were saying, if we get younger people in there, the problem is you need people my age that know how to do stuff, or you'll hemorrhage money, or you won't get it. What you need is cool people. And there's also racist young people. So, what you need is like-minded. But again, the same way, like I was saying about Atlanta, right now, they're not paying everybody they're not paying anybody enough to keep their mouth shut for any reason at all. They're not giving us frequent enough work to keep our mouths shut. And I think that we're all collectively starting to talk, and that's where the shift happens. And that's where eventually you've got a whole freaking movie crew right there, and you don't need any of them to help you put that together, because we all found each other, because you locked us all out the house. Eventually your party's got 3 old white guys in it, and the real party is in the front freaking yard at the tailgate. So whatever, here we are.
Well, P. Diddy, no,
wait a minute, no.
No.
Look, I don't care what crime you are committed of. Like, I don't care what they're accusing you of. If the prosecution has that you got 1,000 bottles of baby oil in your evidence lock, you're guilty. Guilty. Yeah. I don't care. You don't got to tell me the crime. My vote is guilty. Lock them under the jail.
Right.
That's disgusting.
I agree, and I want to, just for the sake of our media personalities and stuff, let's go to comedy, because like I said, TMZ's hacking and everybody's watching. Right. So let's talk about your comedy for a second. You mentioned that you're doing stand-up comedy, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, how did you, because oftentimes people behind the camera, some do, but a lot of them prefer to stay behind the camera. So now you take in the position of, I want to show my face, I want to put my brand and my ideas out there. For you, what was that transition like for you? Was it hard? Was it something that when you did it, it was like the perfect moment? Like, how did you kind of make that transition?
Well, actually, as a child in the 70s who wanted, when I discovered I was 8 years old and I asked my mom where TV shows came from, and she was like, I don't know, it's a job. And I was like, a job, like a teacher or something? I was like, that's what I'm doing. And that was it. Right. So that's what I wanted. But at the time, and my father literally was like, girls can't do that. They're not allowed. I'm not even kidding. That was literally what I was told. Um,
Yeah.
and so, I said, well, how do you learn how to do that? And she, of course, was like, I have no idea. She's like, but I think there's writing and acting. So I started acting, and it turned out I was good at it. So I actually had an agent as a child. I did some national commercials and some other stuff. And, but it's still, I wanted to be the filmmaker. I wasn't as interested in acting, but it's a huge part of it. You can't be a good director if you don't understand it at all. And I got into Tisch, School of the Arts. And then when I was not able to go, because my dad was like, that's not a thing, I ended up paying my own way through film school at Georgia State. Like I worked my own way through.
Wow.
Yeah. And paid my way through college. And believe me, I was ready for the workload by the end, working full time and going to college full time. Like definitely prepared me for the workload of a film day.
Yeah.
It was no big deal. I was like, I got this. But I really got completely away from performing at that point, like completely. And then around 2016, 2017, I actually went and kind of got back into it a little bit and got an agent. I was signed with an agent through the pandemic. We went our separate ways during the pandemic, and I haven't gone. I got to get a new agent now. I haven't even thought about it. And now that the comedy's taken off, I'm like, crap, I got to do that too. Now I need an agent again. So the performing part was there already. I had been doing that since I was a kid. It just wasn't my big goal. When the pandemic hit, there was no storytelling happening, and I always write, but everything that I write is in script form. Like that's just the way my brain works. It's the stories, how I think of them visually or whatever. And one day I started writing, and it was really more just like a monologue, like me talking. And I was like on stage. Long story short, I talked to a friend. I was like, I think I've got something here, but it's more like a one-woman show or jokes or something. And so she hooked me up with Lace Larrabee, who is a pretty nationally known comic. And she does a lot of like joke workshop stuff and writing classes and things. So I connected with Lace, and she's amazing. And because writing jokes is very different than writing a script.
Right.
And she's just a really, really smart, and she's a really good teacher on structure and things like that. So I worked with her as far as the writing stuff goes. And then I performed at the Punchline in March of 2020. And then
Awesome.
1 week later, the whole world shut down. 1 week after my first performance at the Punchline, the entire world shut down. So then I didn't do anything with it in all of 2020. And then it was so busy in 2021. I didn't do anything with it in 2021. I just kind of put it aside. You know what I mean? My need to tell stories was being fulfilled and times 100. And then once that devastating Nexstar buyout happened, and we were all like unexpectedly, I had never been unexpectedly without work ever. So it was just a whole existential crisis for me. And then you're at a certain age and you're like, oh God, it was a real mess. I got back into it then because I thought I can share my voice directly,
Right.
and ironically, there's still old white men gatekeeping this shit too. They're like, you gotta suck a dick to get to this club or whatever, but it's fine because again, guess where I do really well, Percy?
Exactly.
The black clubs, because they're open arms. They know who I am, and I'm funny, so no problem.
Right.
But it's not as bad as some things. But boy, those straight white guys really, they're around every corner, aren't they?
Yeah. You don't gotta tell me twice.
We should, I bet we should have a fucking alert system on our phones for them or something. It's right behind you.
You're right. You are 100% right. Yeah.
Anyway, so I started doing that, and I've just had some success with it. It's a momentum thing. So I was grinding during the strike last year when there wasn't any film work, I was out there like 6-7 days a week grinding at the clubs, and that's how you get momentum built, you know.
Right.
So I put the strike to good use.
That's what for me, I always tell people like during these type of times, it can't it's bad. Don't get me wrong. Some people are going to be worse off than others, but use the time to refine yourself. Maybe learn something new. Do a craft because I remember one of good friend actor I know. He started doing comedy during the pandemic, and now he's doing it. He gets advice to local clubs and stuff in the city. And one of the questions I asked him, and I want to ask you now, it's different because he's a white man. You're a woman. I do want to ask you, because the days of the George Carlins, the Andrew Dice Clays, all those legendary acts at that point are kind of not existing anymore. Andrew Dice Clay, you don't ever hear from him, unfortunately, on the major stage in terms of comedy because of how raunchy it is. For you, are you worried about the whole like cancel culture, censorship on the type of comedy you can do, or is that just something that it's like, hey, you know what, we're in a different ball game, everything changes, everything evolves, now it's just time to do something, just as time evolves we have to evolve as well?
I've never seen anybody get canceled over a funny joke.
That's true.
Not once. Show me a hilarious joke that somebody got canceled over. No, so I've never ever seen anybody talk about getting canceled unless is a white guy saying the N-word, a white guy making an abortion joke, a white guy who's never experienced a miscarriage in his family making a miscarriage joke, or making a rape joke. Like it's usually white guys, and they've said something inappropriate. You can always tell they're the convicts that get up there and go, "Come on, that was funny." Oh, buddy, that's not how this works. But yeah. So I think that's just talk for people. That's just like a bullet point talking point that gets some traction these days that cancel. But I don't know any comics who have been canceled. Like I couldn't name a single comic that's been canceled that like was funny that now we can't listen to anymore. Like, except for like people that got like Cosby. Cosby got canceled, but he didn't get canceled because his comedy was inappropriate. He got canceled because he drugged and raped dozens of women.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't count with what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So when like Louis C.K. got canceled, it wasn't because he made a joke so offensive that we canceled him. He whipped his dick out without asking multiple times. So we canceled him. That's again not the same. So they mesh it all together. But essentially, it's white guys doing or saying things that wouldn't be acceptable in the grocery store or in a school or at their job or in a restaurant with a stranger. You know what I mean? Like, would it upset a group of old ladies? Would they go, oh, maybe, but it's not going to get you canceled. So, I don't, like I said, they say that, but I'm like, name one. It's usually a guy who's on a fucking podcast going, they're canceling me. You're on a podcast. You're not canceled. You're really not. Like I said, if anybody could point out a joke that got someone canceled, but I can't think of a single one. I think it's just make-believe.
I'm curious, like Andrew Dice Clay is one of he's before my time, but my buddy's dad introduced me to him. And like the comedy he used to do back then, I just don't think that, I think there's a certain audience for it now, but I just think on a major stage, I don't think they let him fly because he's just,
Well, I mean, it's just like back in the 80s, literally, like you would be like, that's so gay. And that would mean like, that's so dumb or corny. Like people said it all the time. Like, oh, it's so gay. You're so gay, dude. Whatever, gay wad. And stuff like that. So things like that, like that's what everybody said in the 80s. It's not cool. It's not okay. And it doesn't mean that we're lame today. It means you were lame for saying that shit back then.
Right.
You let it slide because it was 7-year-olds. They didn't even know what gay meant. You know what I mean? But Andrew Dice Clay, he just, a lot of his stuff would work with that. He also had funny jokes too, though. Like he was funny. Like he's not unfunny, but it's the same. Like he's just one of those, like those are the jokes that would just be like, they're not funny. You're literally like calling a guy gay or saying like, oh, it might be a woman. Oh, if you know what I mean. Can't tell if
Right.
it's a guy or a gal. Ha ha. It's like that's not really funny anymore. You know what I mean? It's not even that
Yeah.
it's not even that it's canceled. It's like we're past that now. Like even old people are like, that's not funny. No. But
Yeah.
again, like I said, I also like show me a joke that's hilarious. It's not getting canceled.
Yeah,
It's
that's true. But I on the to piggyback off of that, I want to ask you this. Even though because you mentioned earlier, comedy and filmmaking, obviously I know, but a lot of people may not know is different. For you, when it comes to doing comedy, is it for you very important that when you do your comedy, it doesn't stray too far off course or cross a certain line? Because we all know that when you have a reputation in any field, but being in the entertainment industry, you say the wrong joke on stage. Next thing you know, the phone calls dry up, the work
right.
dries up. Are you always kind of curious and cautious about okay when I do this set or when I come up with this routine that okay, I don't mind pushing the boundary here, but I want to make sure that it's still clean cut and it doesn't offend anybody.
No. No. I mean, I literally have so many jokes about anal and I just change it to butt stuff if it's older people in the audience. They still giggle. Um, but no, I mean, one of the only way to do good comedy is to have it be authentic to yourself. Like it's got to be authentic. And I'm not gonna accidentally say something inappropriate on stage or off. Like I'm gonna say a lot of inappropriate things because they're like sexually explicit or I'm swearing or whatever, but I'm not going to accidentally say something offensive because I'm not thinking those things. That's not who I
Right.
am anyway. I don't say that in private, so I'm not going to accidentally say it in public. And believe me, after this long in the industry, I am Arma, and everybody who's ever worked with me knows who I am. Very clear about who I am. You can take one freaking look at me and go, I am who I am. I mean, look at my office. This is not a well person. Um,
Let's find a me. Let's find a
but
me.
no, I mean, it's fun, but it's just crazy. But and so no, they for me it's just about being authentic. And so no. And also I would never like disparage coworkers or disparage a show or talk shit about a studio or I'm not stupid. I would never do that on stage. I don't have any funny material about that right now anyway, but I wouldn't, obviously that is a no because when you're working with celebrities for 8 years, you're seeing you could write 10 books and you don't. So I would never
Right.
do that. That would get me, I would disappear probably.
That's true.
She
A
just
little
literally
Epstein.
just vanished.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, so I personally don't. I can imagine that I've seen some acts that I can't imagine they have a corporate job.
That's true. But
So
you know what? I think it's, oftentimes like for me, I remember someone asked me this, like, why don't you curse and stuff like that? And it's like, you know, this is something I enjoy and I love it, but acting is what I do. And when people are watching your content, whether it's someone you haven't worked before or someone you work with, when you have a reputation or you have a name that you want to uphold, you don't want to make sure that you go out there and you start any type of controversy because one thing might snowball, especially in today's society. Your stuff is, someone records it, it goes on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Next thing you know, you have CW or Marvel Entertainment like, hey, is this who I think it is saying this? Oh, get them out of here. And we've seen this, Harley Sawyer and a bunch of other, people who, the list goes on. You have to be careful, right? When you have
yes.
multiple sources. So that's why I was kind of more curious, like for
Well,
you, because comedy is not your full-time thing. It's like something you enjoy.
right. Well, like doing something like this, I'm a lot more cognizant of what I'm saying that might get misconstrued because we're having a conversation and I haven't planned it out what we're saying. Whereas on
Right.
stage, I can actively avoid, discussing. But like here, talking about the industry, you definitely want to be careful because, like, when I'm talking about the white guys that were like, we should switch this character to a guy, I still literally can't believe that actually happened. But I gotta.
Yeah.
Like I can, but I can't. So those kinds of things. But like in this case, I don't really care. For one, they're not going to be watching this podcast probably. And for two, because they're old white guys. So they'd say a woman and okay, no, we're not watching this one. That's the next
Don't.
one. Yeah. She
Yeah.
don't look like she takes her clothes off. Keep going. She
Swipe
won't look at
right
the
and
watch.
left.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, it's I do feel like one thing that we have to remember in this digital day and age that I try to, tell people is that every moment captured of you it could represent you.
Right.
It could be a 5-second clip, and that is what represents you. So don't pop off at the grocery store when you're feeling tired and the cashier's giving you an attitude.
Yeah.
You smile and be polite. You know what I mean? And let's all be nice. And honestly, that should actually help people act nicer, and don't be jerks. Now, I'm not a person that would ever yell at a person in a store. Like, that's just not my style. I hate confrontation. So I'm an apologetic person. I would be apologizing to the cashier for something, and probably to the person behind me for taking too long to get my credit card out. I'm an apologetic lady. So not a yeller, but you know what I mean? Like, all of those moments can define you. And that is something and so, like, not swearing is a smart thing. Like, for me, I swear, so I apologize, but I swear. And I try, if it's, I'm not going to go do a speaking engagement at a school and swear, I'm not that much of a sailor. But, I can see how, like I said, it could define that one moment. They see that cuss word, and in that one person's mind, that's the moment that defined you for them and didn't define you in a positive way. So that's smart, to be aware of that. And I think younger people are a lot more aware of that. The
Yeah.
millennials were the poor souls that were the canaries in the coal mine.
Right.
Who many of millennials' lives were ruined because they were just getting on nobody had been on, like, had their party pictures put online before. Thank heavens there were no camera phones in my 20s. Woo!
Yeah, right. Be serving cheeseburgers, right?
You'd have intimate knowledge. Either that or I'd have a successful OnlyFans. I don't know. We had some crazy parties back then.
Yeah, right. Hey, don't knock it till you try, right? That's
Only grands, okay, at this
only
age,
grand.
I think.
Only De Niro.
Oh no, I was saying grand like granny. I'm
Oh,
old.
you're not old. You just have
50,
experience. That's
I'm
how I look at it.
53. It's okay.
Hey, 53 is in today's society, 53 is not that old. I
Oh,
would say,
and it's not old. I keep joking. I'm like, I don't get it. Why is everybody like, ew, when you get older? I'm like, I think it makes you a badass, right?
yeah. You know what
Yeah.
it is? I think, especially now with the way how social media has overtaken even just the entertainment industry, right? People are very self-conscious about it because it was actually something that you mentioned. This one actress, I'm forgetting her name. It might come to me, but she started off when she was a teenager. She's in her 40s now. It's Emma Watson from Spider-Man, and she's done a lot of other great movies. And
Yeah.
people was talking about her because she had a movie come out, and they was like, "Hey, she looks old. She's only 43, 44 now." And it's kind of one of those things where we often see people, when you start showing a little wrinkle or whatever, people start saying, "Oh, you're aging out. You're not going to get as many roles. You're not going to get as many opportunities. You're old and washed up." And I think part of that is because our society has, when we look at the cameras, when we go on Instagram and social media, we want to see the pretty, youthful, good-looking people. So I think it's ridiculous. I know very many older actors, over the age of 45, who are still working a lot today. They're still out there making their money.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
out there having a career. It's whatever you define as, right? And I think,
Well,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's to speak on that is there's an experience level that you gain from that too, but also I feel like in the from being an experienced actor, like an older actor is going to be killer because they know what they're doing, and they're going to be better and better as they get older. But besides that, I think that one way that's going to get will combat that is having more women behind the scenes.
I agree. Yeah.
because women aren't going to be like, oh, she's too old. And also, women aren't going to be casting a 22-year-old to be the wife of the 70-year-old actor, you know. So again, I know I promise I like men, but these old white guys that are going, we can't
Yeah.
have a 40-year-old woman with a 70-year-old actor. We need a 20-year-old woman. And like, that's perpetuating it. That's what's happening. And they're all we're getting shown is 25-year-old flawless women who are models. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And when you have women casting, then they put realistic people in there, and it's, going to work out better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's one of the biggest things for me. I've kind of realized over the years. It's like I watch a lot of newer it hasn't been as bad, but I know over from like 2018 to like 2022, there was a period of like almost every Netflix show, any new show that was coming out, it was kind of this thing where the lead actor and some of the other actors who weren't the leads but were integral to the storyline. They had the chiseled jaw, six
Oh,
pack, great eyebrows. The women voluptuous,
yes.
look like models, which is great. But then when you look at the acting, you're like, hey, this person can't act out of a can of tuna. So it's like I think it's shift. I think now we're starting to see a evolution, if you will. I think we won't really get that height peak of actual true equality and diversity probably for another 10, 20, 30 years. But I think as like I said, like you said, more like-minded, newer people, all these lawsuits and stuff coming out, famous directors getting, canceled and thrown out for egregious behavior. As those people age out and get out, we'll have more chances of people like you, people like me, and other people like-minded come in and start reimagining what the industry looks
Yes.
like. It's just
Totally.
when you're older, I always, people think it's ageism. I don't think so. I think when you get to a certain age, and my mom's like that. She's almost 65. And it's like, I've seen how she used to be so open-minded. And now she's stuck in her ways. And you see that with a lot of older people. It's hard for them to imagine, hey, a man could be bisexual and still be a great actor. For them,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, we're not quite there yet. I want to keep what the original was in the 70s and 80s. That's what I want to see. So I think we just need more progressive people, leaders ahead of these corporations, and then things will get
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah, that's it. It's the ones at the very tippy top. Like we're pushing our way up there though, aren't we? We're getting
Yeah,
there. We're getting there. But yeah, once we get to the tippy top, then a lot of these, literally like all of the problems that we discussed today, we could eliminate.
that's true. And we could go down this rabbit hole all day.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, thank you for being generous with your time. It's been a pleasure. I won't keep you on here too long. I know you got other stuff you got to do, but I do want to ask you, what is next for you? Like for you, what do you envision? You've done it all. Oh well, you've done a lot. I want to say you've done it all because that's subjective to
I got more to
everybody.
come.
For you, like what is your ultimate goal, or what is something like a movie or project or a music artist, whatever, or comedy? What is something that you really want to do and explore and really achieve?
The shows, starting with the one show that I've got, but it's actually from a group of shows that go together but don't go together. And that's all I can say about it. But that's really what I want to do. I want to tell my own stories. I have spent my entire career in service of other people's stories,
Right.
and I want to tell my stories now. So being on stage is really rewarding because I'm telling my stories, not someone else's. But what I'm ready for now is the combination of all of it, and to tell my stories on film, tell my stories through film and television. And that's really, really, really what I want. And I'm a little blind because as long as I've been in this industry, again, it's been a lot of people that are, girls can't do that. So now girls can do it, but I'm like, okay, but how? So I'm exploring all new worlds there, and that's really, but that's it, and I'm not scared to say anymore because, that is what I'm going to do. That
Right.
is what I'm going to achieve. I'm going to get these shows made, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So I would just like that to happen sooner than later. And as far as comedy goes, just continue. Just keep writing, keep performing, getting better, and telling my stories, because it's so fun. I like it a lot. So, but yeah, making my shows. So, and this has been so fun, by the way.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
I try. This is why they pay me the small bucks. But
I always say, like when you're doing these shows, you're like, "This is why they pay me in White Claws."
Yeah, right. I don't even get that. I get the Heineken. That's it.
Yeah, right.
But I'm curious. Before we go, I want to ask you. Because for me, Wes Craven, Rob Zombie, Michael Bay, the list goes on. There's a lot of people I would love to work with. For you, is there any director, anybody behind the scenes, or any comedians you want to work with in the future that is someone you like? I need to get in with at some point and work with.
I mean, honestly, like I said, right now, I really, really want to work with Nisi, because she's got that whole production company, and I'm really, I know a lot of people that have worked with her, and she's just a really good person, and she's also really smart, because good people are nice, but they're not maybe the best people to be partners in business with, but smart people are. So I would say her. And as far as, like if I was thinking about working on other people's projects, I don't know. I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan.
Good
So,
one. Yes.
I would love to know him and work on a project with him, or at least like consult with him on some things would be obviously ridiculous. But right now, women, that's what I want. I want women, and I want the next greatest women I want to know them too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nice to focus on all the people that exist already, but it's like, let's start focusing on some of the next ones that are coming through too. And that's really, really what I want. Is I want to be in a position to help people who are marginalized in this industry. My God, if I could do anything before I die to put myself in a position, because I am right now in film and even in comedy a little bit in a position to help people, start their journey, but to really be able to help filmmakers who are marginalized, who, it's not because they don't have a great project. It's literally because they can't get a meeting, because
Right.
nobody knows who they are. So they literally can't even get to a meeting to tell anybody about their amazing project. I would love to do that. So anyway.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said, and you're right. And I want to give a shout out to Tyler Perry. He's killing it in Atlanta,
Yes.
and Ryan Coogler. I think when movies come out, he get the hype, but then when the movies kind of die down, people kind of forget. But here's another one. He always makes a point to get all minority cast, crew, production. Shout out to those two. They're at least two right now that are leading the pack of showing that minorities, the underrepresented groups, can go out there and do a great job and kill it. So
yes, and can I just say, if you're making a film of any kind or a TV show in Atlanta, and your crew isn't wildly diverse, you're a piece of crap, because it's Atlanta.
Exactly.
It's like if you got an all-white comedy show happening in Atlanta, you're a piece of crap. It is Atlanta. There are literally hundreds of funny comics that are Black. Like, book them, call them. So it shouldn't have to be a Black filmmaker that hires Black people on their freaking crew. But that's obviously, like, you can ask anybody that I work with. Every one of Group 129's projects are going to be like that. And no, I'm not going to hire a worse DP because he's Black. The DP I work with, Kai, happens to be Black and happens to be better than your sorry ass. So whatever, thanks.
That's what I'm talking about. Show them.
Period. And that's it. But that is the truth, though. It won't happen unless non-white filmmakers make it as important. Why aren't there women as any heads of department? Why are all the heads of department white? Why are there no Hispanic people here? Why do I not see a single Asian face on this entire crew? Don't tell me there's not crew people. There are. You're just not even. Again, though, it's what I said at the very beginning of all of this. It's that little Jimmy story. But Jimmy, I've known Jimmy for 10 years. Jimmy's part of my crew. Like, yeah, but that's because you guys have this little insular group and it's going to perpetuate forever unless you break it up a little. So I'm here with
Yeah.
my sledgehammer.
That's what I'm talking about. The visionary right here. That's what I'm talking about. Arma, it's been incredible to have you on. Share your experiences and your expertise in such a industry that many people want to aspire to be in, but really don't understand. And to have not just a woman, but someone behind the camera with so much success as you come on and talk about that, I think it really is an important conversation to have. And I'm glad that were able to come on and share that, because not only for me did I learn something, but there's other people out there who's going to learn something from you as well.
Nice.
So before we go, is there anything that you're working on that you can plug? You want to plug a new comedy show that you're doing? Anything you want to promote?
Well, we just start a new mic every Wednesday at Rocky Mountain Pizza in Atlanta, this mozzarella mic. But like Nate Russ came through last night. I mean, he's huge. Like Carter Deems from Wild and Out came through the other week. So that's been really fun. So any Wednesday you're in Atlanta, come to the mozzarella mic. And honestly, just follow me on Instagram, because I use that. That's if you want to know where I am and what I'm up to, that's got all of my like latest projects. But basically I'm going to be just head first into comedy and getting that show on the air.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. I'm the most charismatic man. That is Arma Benoit. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. And like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. And see.